I'm not Rabbit Plate fan, although I don't despise the outstanding status of their games. I got into SOMERVILLE not because it's from the creator of Limbo and Inside, but because I was fascinated by the setting and the storyline. A husband and wife, along with a young child and cute dog, live in a cabin in the middle of nowhere, when suddenly one terrible night they encounter a global catastrophe. An alien invasion. The head of the family finds himself separate from his family, and the situation forces him to go to the quest, to cross dangerous territories under the control of alien invaders and adapt to a fighting and aggressive environment. The material in the game evoked persistent association with the War of the Worlds adaptation, which to me very skillfully conveys a sense of corniness and fear of the unknowable enemy, while carefully dealing personal human problems against the backdrop of a large-scale cataclysm. So I was counting on an emotional, tear-jerking adventure, while not even thinking about the gameplay perspective. Partly my expectations were met, partly not. The gameplay mechanically really won't surprise sophisticated gamers. Most of the texts are basically on interacting with obscure alien substance scattered around after an invasion. By pressing one button, the protagonist smells this slurry, and by pressing the next button, he makes it solid. The nuance is that the interactions still require a source of energy. That's why sometimes you have to switch, move and fight something. Otherwise, SOMERVILLE offers the standard arcade action. Sometimes you have to run from the process, sometimes to hide from the gaze of the aliens. The only thing worth mentioning is that, unlike Limbo and Inside, the game is three-dimensional. Locations are primarily linear, and in general the developers often keep the player in a clear and familiar to him plane. But sometimes there's a flirting with the depth of the scenes and moving the camera. The scenes themselves are drawn quite nicely. There are enough details and decorative elements. There are interesting transactions from one location to another. There are both open spaces and pressing grottos. At the same time, you regularly find objects that tell a story, that present a picture of events that have happened, whatever it's music festival abandoned in a hurry or a burning bonfire surrounded by children's drawing. In terms of art design, however, there are a number of problems and mishaps. The animation in SOMERVILLE are mostly fine, but more jarring are the absurd change in poses, or the main character suddenly freeze, bumping into a puddle or other small obstacle. It's doubly upsetting when you remember that Jumpship, the studio responsible for the game, was organized not only by playlist Dino Party, but also by Chris Olsen, a specialist in animation. Why such rawness we can only guess. Perhaps play a role the same three-dimensional nature of the game which imposed a mark on the behavior of object, or maybe the team got carried away with creating a model of alien maze behavior, with which we constantly interact and which is really implemented very well, and we didn't pay enough attention to the little things. Don't get me wrong, I am not talking about disastrous problems. The raw level of quality is very high, and you are certainly not grabbing your head in the process. It's just that, given the narrative or even cinematic nature of the game, you pay attention to such shortcomings in the first place, and because of this is beginning to destroy the magic of immersion in the story. The technical shortcomings do not help to stretch it either. Characters' models constantly pass through each other without being subject to any collision at all. The game is poorly optimized. In my initial battle stance with masses of moving objects, the frame count per second felt like I was dropping to single digits. Fortunately, later the game seems to have rocked, and they thought that it worth pastoring the passage until the release of patches gradually went away. SOMERVILLE is banal lack of settings. It is impossible to adjust the brightness of the screen or run the game in the window. Users also report that without a gamepad it's better not to go here at all. Remember, not a word in human language. The game has no translation in variety language, but I want to reassure you, it's not required. SOMERVILLE has no unusual dialogues or notes. The whole narration is based on the game's scenes and events, which give you a stage feeling of being in parallel universe with the deep mute humanity, which to me does not suit the game at all. If in Limbo, for example, there was an atmosphere of another dimension and mysterious paranormal, the gravity of which was enhanced by deafness and inhibition, then the situation is completely different. We initially play as an ordinary man, through caught in extreme condition. He sometimes sees other survivors, realizes he is on his own planet with these unusual traces of civilization, so we expect a more down to earth and understandable behavior on a domestic level. Both from the main character and from the few people he managed to cross paths with, but absolutely everyone on the screen is stupidly silent. Because of this, again, the emotion and level of empathy suffers. At some point you stop emphasis with the characters simply because they don't seem to care. They behave in a very detached way. The music helps to activate the situation, but only partly. Yeah, the occasion set piano reminders in the cutscenes are good, but a more heartfelt beat in the game episode would be nice. It could probably take the heavy burden of emotion. Well, add to this whole production picture that the final chapters sharply lead the narrative away from the personal problems of an ordinary family and its survival, drawing a lot of weirdness, questions, cosmic psychology, and other trademark outer nonsense with abstract images, symbolism, and all of that. The game even has several endings, but the meaning of them is unlikely to be available in detail to ordinary players. This is content exclusive for big fans of SPSS and theory bondings, and those who like to get concrete answers to questions, yes, it's me, are unfortunately left by the wayside. I would call SOMERVILLE a failure, but a very specific one. If you look at the components of the game individually, you won't notice a glaring disaster anywhere, but there are frustrating raw edges, flaws and nonsense almost everywhere that the developers couldn't see with their washed-up eyes. It's a good thing that Thunderful Games holding Square Jumpship Studios before the release of its debut game. Most likely, this will give Patty and Olsen the opportunity to take into account the experience, work on their mistakes, and try to surprise and delight everyone again in the next project. So to sum up, pros of the game is sometimes the location looks really fascinating. Not bad for capturing the spirit of Herbert Well's War of the Worlds. And cons is lot of minor malfunction and lousy technical condition. The game is incapable of capturing the player with narrative through the environment alone.